Hi Sobat UNNES, welcome back to In Conversation. Debate about artificial intelligence AI tends to focus on its potential dangers, algorithmic bias and discrimination, the mass destruction of jobs, and even some say the extinction of humanity. However, others are focusing on the potential rewards. AI could, they claim, help humanity solve some of its biggest and thorniest problems. And they say AI will do this in a very specific way by radically accelerating the pace of scientific discovery, especially in areas such as climate science, green technology, and business. UNNES in Conversation. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Arif Perdana. He is an associate professor in data science and analytics of Monash University Indonesia campus. He's also the director of the Action Lab Research Network Indonesia Node, Monash University.
Arif, how are you today?
I'm good.
Great. So Arif, actually, I would like to know the general terms of the artificial intelligence. Could you please elaborate more on what is actually the artificial intelligence, specifically in the business and corporate world?
All right. So I think we need to have the same understanding what is AI, right? So in a simple term, AI is simply teaching the computers to perform various tasks like what human done, right? These various tasks include like classification, prediction, and now even we know that AI can generate text, videos, images, right? And then AI can also be based on rule and also be based on data. So that's why now we know that because of big data is becoming massive, right? So then AI is much more advanced. AI back then in 1950 is already there, but it's just rule based. And then you know that even there was AI winter, right? Because of limited data, right? In just rule based. In finance, actually, if you know, since 1960, we already use AI in the primitive form of AI. Like you know that in economics, we know augmented bankruptcy model.
Yeah.
So it uses regression, right? And then in 1980, we have in the tax domain, so we have taxman, which is the tax application, which is based on rule, right, for tax planning. But then in 1970 to 1980, AI was a bit stagnant because the data is limited, right? And then because the computer is becoming more powerful and then the data is becoming massive, now we use AI in much more advanced because we can train AI with much more complex and then we can make it more accurate. So in finance, actually, AI is not new, but now because data is becoming massive, we can make AI much more powerful.
So actually, Arif, how's the progress? Because you've mentioned earlier that actually the AI is already the finance area in the 60s.
Yeah.
And now we are living in a digital era.
Yeah.
So how's the progress from the, let's say, traditional AI becomes into more modern and multi?
Yeah, traditional AI start from rules-based and then based on data as well. But again, as I mentioned, it's still limited, right? Now, you know that we generate data in second, right? So that data can be used to train AI in finance, right? For example, for stock trading, right? For credit risk modeling. So that's where AI is advancing now. Yeah.
What were the early application actually in the AI in finance?
The early application of AI in finance related to stock price predictions, and also, as I mentioned before, augmented bankruptcy model. It's just simply using regression. It's still using limited data, but now it's progressing not just predicting stock market and also like predicting bankruptcy, but also for risk management, like for fraud detection, and even where now we have witnesses the generative AI So that can be used for creating synthetic media or creating the things that are beneficial to finance domain.
Yeah. So what about the recent, technological advancement influence the AI in general, specifically in the business?
So if you ask me at the moment, yes, the advancement of AI, so it impact more on the finance world. So for example, we can use chatbots, right? So with the chatbots, so customers are very easy to interact with the companies, right? And then, for example, another example, credit risk modeling. So that's really helpful for companies for their risk management. For example, to predict whether someone will likely to be default or non-default, right? Based on the criteria that they have. That's really helpful for the companies.
So what I'm thinking about the AI in business, when I take a look at the broader spectrum on side, what do you think in terms of the readiness, specifically from the business owners or business sector's perspective? Are they ready to really engage with the AI for the present or maybe in the long term?
So I think if we talk about companies, we need to divide whether they are multinational, large companies, or whether they are small companies, right? So actually, again, AI is not always sophisticated technologies, right? Even if you are doing simple regression, that's part of AI. But you can be much more advanced when you do like machine learning, when you do classification, when you do deep learning, when you do neural networks, so on and so forth, right? So for the large companies, multinational companies, indeed they have resources, right? They have technology resources, they have human resources, they have all the capital and resources that they need to implement the technology. And it's easy for them, right? But then for the small, medium enterprises, they're still limited of resources, lack of resources in terms of human, in terms of technology. Actually, they went to implement that AI, but because of these limited resources, that have the constraint for them, right? So here, I think there is a need for collaboration between government, between the company itself. If they are willing to adopt AI, right, they have to ensure they have the sufficient resources financially and then technologically, and then they can adopt it.
Yeah. Talking about the government, do you have any perspective that what about the Indonesian government in terms of the regulation or probably the incentives offered by the government? Are they really supportive in terms of the AI application here for the business in Indonesia, or are they still struggling to really engage with the rapid change of the AI in general terms?
At the moment, what I'm aware, Indonesia has AI roadmap until 2045, right? So that's really, I think, supportive policies, right? So for example, in the roadmap of AI, so the government prioritized several areas like education, health, and then including smart cities as well, and then the use of AI for improving bureaucracy and public policy management as well, right? So I think it can accelerate the implementation of AI, including those for business as well, because it's already mentioned in the roadmap of AI.
Yeah. So now, as I've mentioned earlier in the introduction, that one of the potential dangers of the AI that makes people worried about is the mass destruction of jobs.
Yeah.
And then now we are in the university center. That what you can say specifically for the students? Are they going to be replaced by the AI in terms of the future of work, or are they becoming somebody who drives an AI to make them more productive and engage more in terms of the workplace?
Yes, technology will replace some of the jobs, but will not replace human involvement. So I think history tells us about that, right? So let's say about land clearance. So previously we need more human, right, to do the land clearance. Now we can use just a tractor, right? So just one or two operate that machines, and then we can do the land clearance easily. The same like at the early days for the internet, right? So many people think that internet will replace jobs, but then internet create much more jobs and then create various jobs which we cannot imagine before. The same for AIs as well. So the thing is, we as a human, we need to improve our skills. We need to keep ourselves in the loop of automation, so that we can interact with AI, interact with technology, so that they'll become our co-worker, not our competitor. So I am a big believer that human cannot be replaced by technology, but we can work together with technology, with AI, and then we can progress our human civilization.
The humanity, to AI, but then it's more than a complementing,
Correct.
the humanity and AI to be go hand in hand. Okay, but now talking about the corporation area for the world. So are there any specific areas in the financial sector that are more affected by AI than other sectors?
I think finance, right? It has risks, right? Even it can be classified as a business domain, which is high risks. And then if we bring in AI, so we need to use AI to mitigate that kind of risks. What is one of the potential risks in finance, right? Default, right? Because if someone is default, and then it will be lost for the company, right? So one of the application in finance related to this AI is credit risk modeling. So by using that kind of risk modeling, so companies can mitigate the potential loss, right? So they can keep track if this person, right, has specific characteristic, whether they will likely to be default or non-default. And then another thing for fraud analysis, fraud anticipation. So business and finance can use AIs as well to mitigate any fraud risks.
So risk modeling and also the fraud now becomes more advanced in terms of the AI implementation in the financial sector. But what about the limitation or the constraint provided by the AI the financial sector?
Okay, the constraint is because, as I mentioned before, finance is one of the domain that can create high risk, right? And even if we bring AI, it can create risk as well. What are the risks? Ethical risks, legal risks, and then social impact risks. So, like in credit risk modeling, so the risk can be like digital discrimination. If, let's say, the minority people, the data is not represented properly, and then it will amplify bias to that model, right? And then if someone that actually they can get loan, but because of the credit risk modeling, they can reject from the loan. So that can be a social impact, right? So digital discrimination, biases, that's the potential negative impact from the AI implementation.
We have discussed about the usage of the AI in the financial sector and in the business in general terms. But now we are shifting our conversation into the ethical elements. So do you worry about the ethical concerns regarding AI use in the financial sector or in the bigger spectrum context?
We should be worried of that kind of risks, but there are mitigation on it. So many institutions in the world, including professional body, government, they are developing the ethical guidelines, right, to mitigate this kind of potential risk regarding the privacy. So in Indonesia, we already have Undang-Undang PDP, right? And in Europe, we have GDPR. And then now you know that European Union also proposed EU AI Act, right? And then I'm not sure, maybe in next few years, Indonesia will implement that AI Acts as well. And then many jurisdictions in the world, they are trying to develop this kind of AIs as well. So the purpose of this AI guideline, AI regulation, ethical guideline, is to ensure that the risks, including the ethical, social impact, is to be mitigated properly. So the onus for this kind of mitigation is to protect the customers and to protect the companies as well.
earlier, actually some of our regulations already there. They're already established to guide the financial institution or the business in the general terms, followed with this set of regulation by the government. But then what about the ways on the financial institution navigate the ethical, legal, and also the social impacts or risks of AI?
So I think it's not just AI regulation. Any types of regulation, there are still a learning curve and then compliance. So it takes time. But I believe that over the years, so our businesses, government institution, they become more familiar with this kind of regulation, and then they can navigate this kind of AI rules, right, much more smoothly over the time. That's I believe on that.
Yeah. So, Arif, is there any regulatory bodies specifically, dealing with the AI regulation here in Indonesia?
Actually, at the moment, I'm not aware of, but in terms of Undang-Undang PDP, so Undang-Undang PDP will mandate, right, in the next, there are 2 years transition time, right, to implement that regulation. So we will have a data protection authority, which will oversee all the data governance, right, in government institution or business institution. So later on, the way we collect data, we process data, or we destroy data will be much, much more strictly.
What about the international or more developed countries? Are they established, already in terms of the regulation to protect or maybe to provide the guidelines for the financial institutions?
Yes, in terms of data, in Europe, it's, I think, the most stricter region, right, to implement this kind of data protection. They have GDPR, and then you know that EU now is proposing new law, EU AI Act, right? So they classify AI into high risk, middle risk, and low risks. And then if, let's say, one of the companies and then they develop AI and then it harms society, and then they will get severe fine, right? So they need to be careful of implementing, developing, and deploying AI.
So our Indonesia, specifically Indonesian financial institution, are on the right track.
At the moment, yeah.
Guidelines.
As far as I know, right, we already have Undang-Undang P2SK as well to strengthen the role of financial authority, including OJK and Bank Indonesia, right? So in that new role, right, OJK and Bank Indonesia will be strengthened their role, right? And in OJK, there will be an executive chief to oversee the innovation in financial sector. So I believe that if this role is properly managed and implemented, so they will oversee all the technology, all the innovation, including AI technology, right? So they will ensure that the risk can be mitigated properly before it will be launched to the wide public society. Yeah.
Okay, so regulation is still in progress in terms of the new version of the regulation, like what you said.
Yeah.
Specifically in terms of the government regulation and government bodies to oversee the ecosystem of financial institutions regarding the interaction with the AI.
Yeah.
So now talking about us as faculty members, researchers, professors, right? So what about the influence of the AI in the academics?
Yeah.
Because for your information on it, actually I wrote an article and then published on our university webpage.
Yeah.
Because I'm also managing the university academic senate.
Yeah.
And then of course we have to have the umbrella of the regulation, whether we really to oversee the use of the AI in the academics arena.
Yeah.
So what do you think about AI in the academics?
So I think it will be a challenging time for us as well in the academic, especially that the generative AI is gaining traction now, right? So even though it will be used for us to make our life easier, but then it has the ethical concern.
Yeah.
Right. For example, how can we ensure that students use that properly in the assignment, in the exam, for example, and from the higher education institutions as well, we need to be aware of the policies and procedures, right? Whether to allow them use that generative AI, if we allow them, in what condition, and then how we can be transparent, ethical, and legally use it for all kind of academic tasks.
Yeah. So what about in your university? I mean, how do you navigate, the negative risk of the implementation of AI, specifically by the students?
Yeah.
For example, like they submit their assignments, their homeworks, and do you really check, because there is a software, and even Turnitin now, attached with the feature of the AI detection.
Yeah.
So is that sufficient enough, to minimize, the risk of AI?
So in our universities there are policies, but again it depends on the lecturers or professor, whether they want to encourage their students to use GPT, large language model, or so on and so forth, right? So actually the policy, let's say, allow the professors to use it, and then to allow their students to use this as well, or totally not allowing the students to use it, right? If let's say the professors allows the students to use it, and then there are guidelines that the students need to do using large language model. For example, they have to be transparent. So they have to mention, this assignment is using ChatGPT for brainstorming, for copywriting, for example, right? Okay, so for example, if using Turnitin, right? So we can look at the percentage of similarity. And when you use GPT-0, right, you can look at how many percent that the content may be generated by AI. So we cannot blindly look at the percentage. We need to have human judgments as well, right? So we need to look at whether that makes sense. The students create that content, right? We need to communicate clearly with the students, ask them whether you use ChatGPT or not. So we need to build trust with students as well, and then ask them.
Great. So now, Arif, we are, ending our discussion. But I have the final question to you. What is your recommendation, for the students, the professors, or maybe the business owners out there in terms of the readiness of the AI, in terms of also the implementation of AI in general? So what you can say to them?
Yeah, I think AI is not new things, right? But AI is progressing. And then we can use AI for certain tasks, but don't think AI as like a panacea for everything, right? So we can use AI for certain tasks that can bring efficiency, bring effectiveness, whether you name it in education or businesses, right? Because if you bring in AI into your domain, even business or education, you need to be aware of the consequences as well, right? Because technology can bring positive or negative. If you bring in the technology into your domain, your business or education, please be careful with the consequences, and then you can mitigate that consequences, and then you can make out of it optimally and efficiently, and also bring much more benefit to the business. Yeah.
So that's wrap up our discussion for today. Thank you so much, Arif, for your time and your expertise.
Yeah.
And then I believe that there are so many insightful things that we can learn from you. So I hope, you out there, the viewers of the program, in conversation, we learn a lot from Dr. Arif Perdana as a established and well-known researcher on data science and analytics, specifically in artificial intelligence. So I'm Sandi Arif. I'm signing off. Thank you so much. So see you next episode in conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you.